Welcome to Fragmore University, presented by Bigfoot Networks, the creators of the Killer 2100 and wireless end gaming network cards. I'm EG.IdrA Fields from North America's leading pro gaming team, Evil Geniuses, and today I'm going to be reviewing one of my own StarCraft 2 replays from the DreamHack Stockholm Invitational. In this replay, I'm facing off against oGsMC on Metalopolis in a Zerg vs Protoss. Let's go into the game. Here, I spawn as the blue Zerg in the bottom middle position, and MC spawns as the red Protoss in the top middle position. This was the first game of the series. It's played on Metalopolis. This is decent positions for Zerg. It is a very long rush distance, so you feel very safe early game. However, as it gets into the mid and late game, this actually favors Protoss, as it becomes very difficult for Zerg to spread their creep all the way across the map in time to be aggressive in the mid game. So it becomes very hard for Zerg to actually trade armies and keep the Protoss' Colossus or high-tech unit count down. So it is kind of a double-edged sword for Zerg there. You can see MC scouting after Pylon. This is pretty early scout. I am opening normally with a 9 Overlord and just building up drones. Here I will want to 15 hatchery, but as he's scouting so quickly, he'll be able to block it with his probe and be forced into 15 pool. That's a pretty standard scenario for ZVP right now. You want to fast expand, but it's almost always blocked by the Protoss' scout. So generally you'll end up pooling first. Here we can see him put down the 14 gateway. If he had scouted me here, he would have gotten his gateway a little bit later, but right now he does not know he's safe, so he invests in the gateway a little bit quicker. He does scout me. I see that his probe is here in time to block it, so I immediately put down the pool. He sees this, sees no gas, so he knows I won't be going for any kind of really quick aggression. Slow Zerglings won't be able to accomplish much, so he knows he's safe at this point. He continues to spend Chrono Boost on probes and gets his gas at normal timing. He knows I'll soon want to build my hatchery, so he sends his probe out here to block it. I send down 2 drones to chase the probe away. He'll just run around until I take his shields down, then he'll build this pylon here. This allows him to run the probe away and save the probe, and still block my hatchery. I send out the drone scout. It's very important for Zerg to drone scout. There's a number of things you need to know early on that you can't know without that drone. And the thing is, with a drone, if you right click to the minerals, they will be able to go through units. So even if he puts a zealot in this gap to block, as long as I right click to the minerals, my drone will still be able to go through there. And you're guaranteed to be able to scout with that. And when I do, I want to see his second gas timing, if he has the second gas or not. If he doesn't, it'll mean he'll be doing either some kind of very risky expansion without enough sentries to safely defend, or he'll be doing some kind of Stalker Zealot all in. In either case, the best response is a lot of Zerglings and possibly Banelings, so that's something you have to look for very early. Another thing to look for is if he's saving up Chrono Boost or not. As we can see, he's not. He's spent most of it on his probes, and he is now spending it on units. This tells me that he's much more likely he's doing a tech build. Chrono boosting out the Stalker means that he really wants to get rid of this drone quickly, because once the Stalker is out, it will kill the drone, but generally the drone will still stay alive until then. I did not lose it. The fact that he is spending the Chrono Boost on that means he doesn't want me to be able to scout him, and he's not too concerned about getting the Warp Gate upgrade quickly. So I know he will not be doing a Warp Gate rush, and I know that a Warp Gate expansion is less likely, whereas a tech build is much more likely now, since he did not want me to be in his base. And here we can see him putting down the Stargate. This is kind of an odd position. It's pretty common to have an Overlord in this area. We'll be able to see it very quickly. I'm not really sure why he did that. I don't understand that decision. It generally would be better to have it up in this area where it's very difficult to scout. Here we can see my expansion is almost done. My second queen is out. It dropped that first creep tumor and began spreading my creep immediately. Once I got Zergling speed, I took my drones off gas. At this point, minerals are more important. You don't really need to tech that quickly, especially since, again, this is cross positions, which is a very long rush distance. You're unlikely to be under too much pressure early on. Unfortunately, he did boost out that second Stalker, so he will kill this Overlord. Stalkers are pretty much invulnerable until the Zergling upgrade, or the Zergling speed upgrade is finished, because they can simply run away from Zerglings. They're the same movement speed. So that was a nice little bit of harass by him. It really kind of takes advantage of the situation. Zerg will feel very safe but he is able to send out those stalkers without really risking too much, since he'll always be able to run away. And here he's going for the slightly less common quick one-base Phoenix play. You don't see too many Protosses do this. Generally you'll want to open up with a Void Ray, but it's not entirely uncommon, and it has improved a lot since the patch that boosted the Phoenix build time. And here I'm going for a very quick third hatchery. This is a ZVP style that's getting a lot more common in situations like this, where it is very hard for Protoss to rush. Since it's cross distance, I'm not likely to be under too much pressure, so I take advantage of that and build the very quick third hatchery. And in doing this, I delay my lair tech, but hatchery tech roaches and zerglings can deal with ground unit rushes pretty effectively, and I can just put down an evolution chamber to have both spore crawlers for detection against DT rushes and for anti-air against any kind of air rushes. I also get a very quick third queen. This helps in general defense, since transfusion is very strong against rushes. It's also added anti-air. Unfortunately, he caught this queen off creep, so that didn't work out particularly well. In response to this, I start my lair immediately. I also start the evolution chamber. It was somewhat late. Generally you want to get that earlier, but as I saw he was still on one base, I wasn't entirely sure he wasn't going ground army, so I wanted to delay that a little bit. And as soon as the evolution chamber finishes, you put down spore crawlers. It's very important to have one in this area because it maintains control of your ramp. Otherwise, this Phoenix can just sit there and graviton beam any units that come through there. One important thing to keep in mind through this is to constantly be producing queens. You need to keep up with your larva injects, even though you're taking damage the entire time. It may seem hard to focus on and like you want to keep producing drones, but it's very important to keep up with queens and always make sure you have one per hatchery. Obviously, they also help with defense. And here, I've pretty much neutralized the Phoenix harass at this point. I have spore crawlers at every base. This one was late. That was a mistake by me. I didn't put it down in time. And so he takes advantage of that by doing some additional harass over here. Right now the spore crawler is finished, and I've stabilized for now. However, he sees this. He sees that I'm depending on spore crawlers and queens, and he gets a Void Ray. This is a very smart move. It's kind of a reactionary thing. Generally, you won't do this. You'll just keep making Phoenix. But since he sees I will be vulnerable to it, he just boosts out the Void Ray. And basically, he's hoping that I'm not doing this. He's hoping that I'm not going Hydras. Unfortunately, I am, so it will not be particularly effective, but it is an interesting idea, and it's just a good response to kind of the dependence on static defense that I had shown thus far. Here we can see, again, I keep making queens. Make sure you always end up with at least one per hatchery. I'm also getting a ton of upgrades right now. It's very important to upgrade your ground army versus Protoss in order to try and do something to deal with how strong their army is. And here he's doing the harass, taking advantage of that static defense like I mentioned. Using the Phoenixes very well to prevent any kind of assistance coming up from my natural. However, I do almost have Hydralisks out, and once they're there, it pretty much secures me. However, you don't want to engage with just the one Hydralisk there, otherwise he'll just graviton beam it and kill it like that. Phoenix are very strong against low numbers of Hydralisks, so you have to keep that in mind. Even though they are anti-air units, they're not particularly good against Phoenix. However, here, I now have enough anti-air up to try and engage, so I can finally come out and clear this Void Ray. That Void Ray really did more damage than it should. I didn't start producing Hydralisks immediately, which is a bit of a mistake by me. However, here he is sloppy. He loses the Void Ray, which helps a little bit. And you can see we ended up pretty much even there. Equal supplies, but I have a third base up, and since he invested so much in air units early, I know I'm not in any danger right now, so I'm free to make a ton of drones. I'm making a couple of units, but mainly I'm making drones, so I'll have a full economy on this third base very quickly. He knows this. He knows he's not really going to be able to attack across map, especially since he's heading for quick robo instead of adding a bunch of gateways, and since he's going for Colossus. So in response, he takes a quick third base. This kind of flips the situation around. Since I don't have creep all the way across map yet, I can't at this point in the game. He knows this is relatively safe. It's very difficult to attack with Hydra Roach off creep. Your units are just not fast enough to deal with force fields without the creep movement bonus. So this is a very smart play by him. He knows he can't be aggressive, so it's better to just fall back and play defensively and take advantage of the map architecture. Take advantage of the fact that it's really not a good situation to be aggressive for either player. And he is heading for Colossus. This is a response to the Hydra'less. He saw that I was opening quick Hydras. Obviously, you can't defend that with just Warp Gate units at this point in the game. You have to wait for a lot of upgrades and Blink Stalkers before Warp Gate units can deal with Hydra'less. So he is heading for Colossus. And Colossus are just a very strong part of any mid-game army. So it's a good tech choice from him. And here you can see spreading creep. If you end up with another queen left over from defending against the air units early on, it's good to just use that to spread creep a lot. And here, that was a bit of a blunder by him flying his Phoenix over my Hydra'less. Unfortunately, he only lost one of them, and the other two went to low health. And you can see me continuing to upgrade. Generally, I prefer attack upgrades in ZVP. Again, once the Colossus engages, they'll kill pretty much anything they touch. So I find it more efficient to focus on just dealing as much damage as you can before you die, instead of worrying about trying to stay alive for longer. And here, since I know he's taken that third base, I really feel like I have to do damage to it. If you let Protoss sit and build up off 3 base, they get a very, very powerful economy. So I upgrade, in order to deal with the fact that it's hard to spread creep across the entire map, I got Overlord speed, and I'm using this to create kind of a highway of creep with my Overlords that my units can take to be aggressive more quickly. And since I know that he was teching very fast and taking a third base, I feel like I should be able to do damage here. I should have an army advantage, and I do. Unfortunately, he also has force field, so the army advantage isn't particularly useful. I do have Burrow Move Roaches, which helps with that a little bit, but not all that much. And here he just has very nice force field usage. He clumps up my units very well, makes it hard for them to attack efficiently. However, I do have enough of a unit advantage that I am able to push him back a little bit. Warped in reinforcements and the Colossus up on the high ground behind the Stalkers are enough to scare me off, though. There was no real way to engage there. However, I did trade for a lot of his army, and I have a huge supply advantage, so I'm in pretty good shape at this point. Here it's just kind of something you want to look for, just any little way to be annoying and do damage to the Protoss. However, he's had another round of units warp in, so he's now safe. And he chases my army back. Realizing that I'm not going to be able to be aggressive against him again at this point, I just start building up Corruptors to deal with the Colossus count, and I will begin teching soon. Unfortunately, during that, I didn't really build up drones. I was focusing a lot on the aggression. I would like to have an economy here, but that's kind of the trade-off you make. If you want to be able to do damage to Protoss, you can't afford to make more than 3 bases full of drones. So that's just kind of a decision that you have to take, and it didn't really pay off here. Here, he's moving out to take his gold base. This is a little bit premature. That's not the strongest army. He hasn't built up any more Colossus, and he doesn't have too many Stalkers, and especially since he's moving out here and showing me his army and getting on creep, it is a little bit dangerous of him to do. However, I only have Roach Corruptor, and I made too many Corruptors, really. I expected him to continue making Colossus, but he didn't, so I only really wanted to have maybe 6 to 8 of these. Instead, I have 10, so I don't have quite as many ground units as I would like to have. And you can see here, I have all these Corruptors floating here, almost useless. Well, he has a very strong ground army, and with good force field usage, he's just holding me off pretty easily. This is a tactic I like to use, making a lot of Zerglings to reinforce. They come in very quickly and they build quickly, so it's just a good way to get more units into a battle. Unfortunately, they don't do very much damage and they die very quickly, so it didn't really help out too much in that situation. But yeah. And here, unfortunately, my goal there was to kill this gold base. Again, if you let Protoss get a big economy up unharassed, they get a very, very powerful army, and there's not too much you can do about it. So it's important to try and be aggressive there, but it didn't really work. So now he does have that big economy established, and he has a bigger army now since I lost a lot of units trying to attack. So I'm in a very difficult situation right here. I continue to try and be aggressive because I know he doesn't have Colossus or any big damage dealers. So I feel that there's some chance that my Hydras will be able to overpower him. However, Hydra's off creep are not particularly effective. They're easy to abuse with force fields and Stalker Micro, so it's very difficult for me to really push the issue right here. Recognizing this, I was going Hive and heading for Broodlords to try and get some way to control this area and deal with the strength of his army. Here he's doing some more harass. He actually has a warp prism set up here, and he's used that to warp in some zealots and do harass on this expansion. It's a nice little tactic. I think that warp prisms are generally underused. They're very good in situations like this when you can't get a probe in to build a pylon. So it's something that more Protoss players should do, really. And again, Protoss at this point in the game really just wants to sit back and defend, get that really, really strong army up. It's very hard for Zerg to be aggressive due to force field and really just the strength of Protoss units and the lack of creep. So as long as Protoss doesn't do any poor attacks at this point in the game, their army is going to win pretty much any engagement that happens. So Zerg just has to sit back and build up their tech or try and find a way to engage with the Protoss army in bad position. Here I see that he's mostly Stalker Immortal, so I'm building up a big Hydra army and trying to be aggressive again. But he just pulls back off creep and aims for a better defensive position, which kind of scares me off because, again, there's no creep here, and Hydralists off creep are very, very bad in a battle. My Greater Spire is almost done. That'll allow me to get a number of Broodlords, which will give me kind of an option to be aggressive here. Unfortunately, he has a lot of Stalkers, which deal with pretty much anything besides fungal very well. So the Broodlords aren't likely to be very effective. I do have the pathogen glands upgraded, so I can begin producing infestors as soon as I have some free gas. However, I was saving up to build those Broodlords, so I delayed infestor production, which wasn't a great decision given that he was so Stalker heavy. It would have been better to build a couple of infestors very quickly. Unfortunately, he also has Templar and Colossus, which both deal in infestors quite well. The Colossus range is it's higher than the fungal range, and infestors are high target priority. So if you ever try and get the infestors within range of the main army, they tend to die. And he also has Templars, which can feedback them. Here he sees the Broodlords and moves back off creep away from my army. And my goal right now, especially since he took this gold base, which is very exposed here, is to just kind of prevent mining here with the Broodlords and sit here and harass him while I build up my own army again and really just establish this new base and build up a lot of money so that I can throw wave after wave of units at him and slowly wear down his superior army. Unfortunately, this has been a mistake here, having my ground units over here. And also I built a lot of Hydralists, which are killed very quickly by storm, so they weren't particularly useful. And he blinked under my Broodlords with his Stalkers and killed them all, so that didn't go too well. And there, with my army eliminated, in return for about 20 supply of his, the game's pretty much over. I can't defend this. He's going to go clean me up, and so I GG. This has been a Fragmore University Pro Tip presented by Bigfoot Networks. You can learn more about the Killer 2100 and their other line of products by visiting bigfootnetworks.com. And for more Fragmore University tips and tricks, check out bigfootnetworks.com/Fragmore.